Hi, I'm Shelley from Frills and Froth, and in my video today I'm going to show you how to make this autumnal cushion out of fat quarters. So keep watching to learn how to do it. If you enjoyed the video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. So let's get on into it. What you're going to need to make this autumn cushion is the free templates that are downloadable off our website. I'll put the link in the box down below. Some fat quarters. I use the Autumn Kona fat quarters. A 1/4 metre of cotton fabric for the lighter stripes. Embroidery needles and floss. Scissors and a basic sewing kit, a glue pen, an erasable pen, coordinating cotton, pins and freezer paper. What we're going to do now is we're going to cut our brown fat quarter into 6 strips, and each strip is going to measure 1 3/4 inches wide. I'm just using the ruler and the rotary cutter, but you could quite easily just use scissors and by drawing a line on it. So what we're going to do now, when you've got your 6 strips, is cut your selvage off and cut each strip so it is 14 inches long. Again, this can just be done with scissors. And we're going to do this on all of our 6 strips. And out of the lighter fabric, you need to cut 5 strips that are 2.5 inches wide and 2 strips that are 1 3/4 inches wide, and they need to be 14 inches long because we're going to sew them together as following the pattern there. So first of all, we're going to sew one of our wider pieces of lighter cotton fabric to our brown cotton fabric, and we just do this by lining our edges up, making sure they all match, and pin in place. Make sure as you're putting your pins in, they're facing away so that you can easily pull them out when you come to them as you are sewing. So we're going to sew these together using a 1/4 inch seam and take our needle pins out, as we are sewing. We do need to back stitch at the beginning and the end of a stitching, and like I said, we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just keep straightening up and making sure your edges match. Take your pins out as you sew. And we're going to trim our threads as we go. It saves us being in a tangled mess at the end. When we come to iron our seams, what we'll do is we'll iron it to the dark side so we don't see the shadow through. Next, what we're doing is we are sewing another wider bit of the cream fabric onto the brown side, just sewing it exactly the same as we did the first two together, using 1/4 inch seams. This time I'm not using pins because I'll be honest, I didn't have the patience, but feel free to use pins. Just make sure all the edges are lined up and you do your back stitch at the beginning and end. So the next strip to be sewn on is another of the brown strips. And again, just sewing exactly the same way, making sure your edges are all lined up, taking it over to the sewing machine, back stitching at the beginning and end and using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. The next strip to be sewn on is one of the thinner, lighter coloured fabric strips. All the details of this will be in the box down below and on the website, which is where you can also download the free PDF of the pumpkin shapes. And I'll write all the details on there as well. So next comes a brown strip. So it goes wider cream brown, thinner cream brown, wider cream brown, thinner cream brown, wider cream. So when that's all done, we'll take it over to the ironing board and press our seams. Again, we press our seams first to set the seams. And I do like to use spray starch. And then, as you can see, I'm pressing the seams towards the dark fabric. This is so you don't see shadows through the lighter fabric on your cushion. Again, you can see me setting the seams. And iron them to the dark side. And do that on all the seams on your cushion. So next we're going to do the pumpkins. And to do that, what we do is use the free printables off the website and copy your trace through your pumpkin, making sure shiny side is down to your picture that you're tracing through. And we're going to trace a pumpkin and our stem separately. So first of all, just trace your pumpkin, I can't even speak, pumpkin shape. And then tracing your stem separately, draw a bit extra on the bottom so that it goes below the edge of the pumpkin. And just cut them out. I do like to write on what they are, so that would be for the large pumpkin, so we don't get confused. And also, freezer paper is reusable, so then you remember what you're using next time. And so there's no mistakes, I like to make sure I write on what way up it goes as well. Obviously, it doesn't take a lot to get me confused. Do the same for your other shapes as well. And once they're cut out, what we need to do is take them over to the ironing board, and we're going to put them shiny side down to the wrong side of your fabric and just iron it in place with a hot iron. So once you've ironed it, it'll just stick on as if by magic. And cut round the paper shape, leaving roughly about 1/3 of an inch of seam allowance. This is what you'll fold over later. Just like that, you'll fold it over. So do a couple of little snips where your seams go inwards. I can never remember whether it's concave or convex. And then start using a bit of glue around the edges. Just fold your fabric over, just taking your time to try and get as smooth edge as possible. As close and as tight to the freezer paper as you can, but not so tight that it bends over your freezer paper. And just work like that all the way round. Just a small amount of glue should get it stuck down. It is just exactly the same as what you'd do if you was doing EPP. So when you've stuck all round your shape, make sure that all your edges are as smooth as you can, there's no sticky out bits, and take it over to the ironing board and press it again. Again, I like to use starch, and you do the front and the back, making sure to pay attention to the edges, just to make sure that they stay in place once we take a paper out. So then all you need to do is gently peel back the fabric from the freezer paper. Just easing it off. All the way round. And peel your freezer paper away once you've peeled all the edges back. And put your freezer paper to one side, as you can reuse that again. We're going to give it another good press, making sure all the edges are folded under. And if there's any sticky out bits at this time, you can just fold them into place to give it a more smoother edge. And what we do is repeat that with all our shapes, well, all the pumpkin shapes, exactly the same way with the stems and our pumpkins. This is why it's good as well to have written on them what they are, so you know which stems go with which pumpkin. So when they're all done, what we're going to do, we're going to attach them to the front of a cushion. So you've just got to decide where you'd like to place them. And it's entirely up to you if you like them overlapping or more spread out. And when you decide where you'd like them, what we'll do is we get our erasable pen, and we're going to draw around our shapes from the top layer of our top pumpkin, and even drawing over the other pumpkins, so that as we lift the layers off we can see exactly where they go. So drawing around each pumpkin. When we sew them on, we'll sew them on in reverse, so from the bottom stem to the top pumpkin. So like I mentioned before, what we do is we start sewing from the bottom layer, which is the largest pumpkin stem in my case. So you just pin it in place, lining it up with the lines that you drew to mark where you liked your pumpkins. And just using a single thread, not doubled over, just go up from underneath your cushion front and bring it through, just catching a bit of your stem. And going back through your cushion cover. Coming up a few millimeters up. And again, just bringing it round. And obviously using coordinating thread with your stem. Again, just doing small neat stitches, working your way around the stem. And if when you get to the corner there's sticky out bits of fabric like you can see there, just poke them in with your needle and just sew them so they're tucked underneath. You can tell you're a hand sewer when your nail polish always looks like that. You always have chips on your thumbnails where the nail varnish gets caught with the needle. Again, tuck in any bits under that you need to as you're sewing round. When you get to the end, take it all the way through to the back of your cushion cover and secure your thread. And trim it off. So like I've said before, what we're going to do is we're just going to layer it off by pinning our shapes on, making sure all our edges are tucked under. Making sure they're all tucked under the edges and pinning it in place. To sew that on, use coordinating thread. But you just sew it on exactly the same way as you did the stem. And next you'd sew on it in layers, like so it would be the medium pumpkin stem and the pumpkin itself, the final stem and then the final pumpkin. I took mine in the house to sew, so I had a little helper, so it took a lot longer than normal. So when they're all sewn on, what you need to do is draw on, I'm going to say the veins of the pumpkin, but I don't think that's right. If you know what the names of these roundy bits are that I'm drawing, please comment below and let me know, because I haven't got a clue. But draw those on with your erasable marker, because that is just guides for you to do your embroidery stitch on. I'm using a green embroidery floss and just embroidery needles. So I like to cut my embroidery floss roughly from the tip of my fingers to my bicep. And I'm going to use 3 strands of the floss. So what you do is this is 6-stranded floss, so you just divide it in, well, split it into 2 just by pulling that apart. So thread your needle, and controversially I like to tie a knot in the end. Some people knot, some don't. So starting on my biggest pumpkin, I'm going to do a stem stitch. I mean, there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube of how to do it from a lot of people that's more adept at explaining it than I am, I should imagine. So what you do though is you do your first stitch and then you take your needle up and go back up and put it halfway up your last stitch. So again, repeat, so go down a few millimeters, bring your needle up and go halfway up your last stitch. So just following the line round. We're just going to do that with all our lines on our pumpkins. Just following it all the way. And once you've done all of them, it should look something like this. So next we're going to do the backing. Because I am doing it out of fat quarters, I've done mine in 2 different fabrics. So each one of these needs to be a 14-inch square. And we're going to do a double hem on one side of each of those of 1 centimetre. So to do that, you just fold over 1 centimetre of your fabric towards the wrong side along one edge and just iron it in place. I'm using a prim ironing ruler, which I've got to say is one of the best things I've found for doing hems. It's so easy. It does save me burning my fingers, which is what I used to do a lot on the hem measurer. I forget what they call them now, but yeah. So then once you've folded over by 1 centimetre, we just fold over by 1 centimetre again and iron in place, and that is your folded hem. We're also going to do that on the other backing piece of fabric, the green one. But like I said, you can do yours in the same colour. It's just because I wanted to do mine and get them out of the fat quarter bundle. And I kind of like the two-tone effect. So, like I said, we're going to do it on the green as well, just folding it over to the wrong side and doing exactly the same thing. And when they're both done, we're just going to sew along this edge here as close to the bottom as we can. So for the yellowy one, pumpkin orangey, I'm using coordinating thread and trying to sew as close to that folded edge as possible. So remembering to trim your threads and remembering to backstitch at the beginning and end. So I didn't bother changing it for the green one because in all honesty I couldn't be bothered, and because you're not going to see it, it's going to be hidden under the yellow side of the cushion, I thought there wasn't any point, so just do exactly the same on the green side. So we're going to pin these onto our cushion front now. So we're going to have it right sides up. Oh, I missed a thread there. So we're going to put right sides together. Just lining up the edges, as you can see that I've done there. But I'm putting the pumpkin coloured one down first so I can hide the edge of the green one that I didn't use the coordinating thread with. So just lining up the edges, the raw edges I should say, all together, and overlapping the green one, and again lining all the outside raw edges up. So I'm just pinning in place. We're going to sew round this using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So again, just sewing all the way round, taking it over to a sewing machine and using that 1/2 inch seam. remembering to backstitch at the beginning and end of your sewing. I also did a backstitch over the joining back so that they didn't pull apart as you're putting your cushion in. So when you get to the corners, if you keep your needle down and lift your presser foot up and twist your fabric and put your presser foot down, then you'll get a really nice corner. Remembering to take your pins out as you're sewing. And keeping your edges all lined up. So again, I'm backstitching to finish my sewing off and trimming my threads. Now it's time to just turn it the right way out and make sure you press your edges out with your fingers and your corners. So you can see how it folds at the back, so you've got that flap to put your cushion in. And all that's left is to put your cushion in now. So thank you so much for watching my sewing video, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, bye.